I want to preface this video by saying that I did not expect much from EU5 at release. I avoided any news and dev diaries about the game like the plague, didn't make any videos, barely talked about it. I did this in an attempt to dive into the game for the first time with a blank slate and an open mind. Despite all of that, of course, I will always retain some bias, some preconceived notions. And truth be told, most of those were negative. Even when the game was announced, my immediate thought was, it is way too early, this does not bode well. Whenever I couldn't avoid seeing something about the game, like when I'd inevitably get flashbanged by the infinite EU5 video thumbnails on my YouTube main page, I just couldn't help but think how unpleasing it looks aesthetically. And I retain that opinion to this day, even several hundred hours in. The game simply doesn't scratch that same aesthetic urge as any of the releases before CK3. Actually getting into the game, I was more than pleasantly surprised. Apart from the late game, it runs fairly well on my PC with some graphical adjustments. Though I'm aware that not everybody shares that privilege, and crashes are rampant for some people even 3 weeks after release. Generally, I'd say that I like the game. I think that EU5's release was a success. It is in every sense of the word a grand strategy game, with deep systems in economy and country management, as well as a great depiction of late medieval and early modern history. One of its greatest strengths is its love for detail. Oftentimes you'll find out that a game mechanic works a certain way and think to yourself that it's interesting or cool that it does. Control and proximity, for example. Nations exert less autonomy over the parts of the realm that are far away. It's a good idea and a great step up from EU4's basic autonomy system. But the fact that armies lose morale as they march around, because yeah, forced marching without breaks sucks. I can attest to that. There's a lot of little things like this that make the game enjoyable. Overall, the game's mechanics are realistic and fun to engage with. The game is fun to play, even after hundreds of hours. There's a lot of good and enjoyable things about EU5, however, there's also a lot of issues and design choices that I simply dislike. All in all, Paradox Interactive has managed to put out a game that wasn't an entirely unfinished shit show at launch. But do you see the problem with that statement? It is the bare minimum. We applaud Paradox for delivering the bare minimum. It is what you'd expect. You'd expect the game to mostly be free of bugs at release, wouldn't you? After all, they have game testers and other quality assurance professionals to go over the product before it's put on the market, right? Well, sadly, I and many others experience many bugs and faults with the game even to this day. And yes, they have and are fixing them, but the fact that you need hundreds of hotfixes post-release continues to leave a sour taste in my mouth. What the fuck is going on with the UI? Why did the people at Paradox look at all the other new strategy games' shitty slop UI and thought, yeah, this is what we want for our game? Who came up with this enshittified corporate design garbage that just sucks all of your aesthetic joy out of you? Fucking golden text on dark blue. That's all devs do these days. Because it's simple and cheap. Well, yeah, guess what? Humans do not crave simplicity in design. Humans crave beauty.
Everything's worth it for the nut, man. Everything is worth it for the nut.
Maybe you should have thought about that while you were doing your useless graphic design master's degree. This shit is ugly as hell, and it's so damn unoriginal. Look at Paradox games before CK3. Does this not look way better? It has character and heart. None of this streamlined corpo trash. Apart from that, it's just wrong. Some menus and buttons are huge, with pictures and big text taking up so much space you need to scroll to the world's asshole to reach the end. While others are so minuscule and tiny you'd think they intentionally went out of their way to hide them. Everything's out of place and completely unintuitive. Yeah, you get used to it over time, but for a newcomer to the game, to the genre, holy shit does it take ages to look for anything. Nothing is where it should be, and the systems in place to aid you in finding shit are so pathetically unhelpful, I cannot. Just like the tooltips you get from hovering over things. I love when the actual explanation that I wanted to a game mechanic is nested in the tooltip of another tooltip of another tooltip. Some of the design choices of this game are just beyond me. The portraits, man. I know it's probably been said 100 times before, but what is the point of the animated portraits? On the one hand, you want to give more relevancy to the characters themselves, but on the other, you're not actually going to make them more relevant, are you? If so, where's the distinguishability between any of these kings? They sure look the same to me, so that can't be it. Ruler traits? Yeah, that's making my guy very relevant and unique. I'm sure I'll remember him for that. Why do you feel the need to give moving bodies and expressions to characters that are essentially placeholders? What's the fucking point? This isn't CK3, and besides, they could have done a way better job at this. I mean, come on. What is this goofy ass 3D comic style? I understand that this is a matter of personal aesthetic preference, but I've yet to meet a single person to commend them on this brave artistic choice. Nobody wanted this, man, and that's a statement you can give for many more things. Hourly ticks. Yeah, we really needed that one. Seeing your battles tick by an hourly rate is so realistic and cool. But oh, let's only make it go from 8 to 19 o'clock because there has never been a battle at night and my soldiers are feeling very EP right now. It makes the game so fucking slow, and while I don't mind the extra 122 years, the fact that we have 4,380,000 ticks compared to EU4's 137,000 is ludicrous. Who wants to sit through that? Let's not pretend as if the majority of us didn't just quit the EU4 game after like 1700, at most 1750. People hardly ever played until the end in single player, and almost never in multiplayer. And now you want to turn a 20-hour campaign into a 200-hour campaign? Nobody asked for hourly ticks, and there should be options to disable them. The AI. Yes, you know it is my favorite topic to rant about. The AI, as is the case in most of Paradox's titles, is hardly a challenge at all. It is there to serve its purpose, which is to exist, to be a slight speed bump in the single player experience. Even on very hard difficulty and starting as a small country, overcoming your AI adversaries is no difficult task at all. It's sad, but as always, what can you really do? The AI has changed a bit over the span of 3 weeks. Around release time, it used to be super passive, not declaring any wars, hardly fighting battles once they did eventually get into war, rarely expanding. It has improved a tad since then. But for some reason now the AI tends to suicide themselves into battles far out of their depth. Furthermore, I've noticed that the AI seems to struggle quite a bit with building and maintaining a proper army once the shift to Regulus happens. They tend to fight solely with the levies, even in the Age of Reformation, which, yeah, I don't think I need to elaborate further on that. Apart from all that, something in the clanker coding seems to make them gravitate towards spamming any and all decision votes if they're available. In, for example, the Catholic Church, defensive leagues, or personal unions, and frankly, it's a bit annoying. Also, they used to just simply immediately break alliances for no reason, but they did fix that, and I'm thankful for it. But how did this get past any testers? Like, what? Automation is an interesting feature. I don't quite use it apart from trade and markets, which seems to be the common trend, but I've tried it on some other categories and man, is it something. In-game automation has the habit of always picking and doing the worst thing possible. Automated schizo diplomacy makes no sense, and giving it the power to handle your building or eco is a death sentence for your population. My god. If this is the system the AI operates on, it's no wonder the state that it is in. Content-wise, I see a lot of potential. There's already a bunch of flavor for certain nations like Castile, England, the Ottomans, but if you look elsewhere beside the big nations, it's practically a desert. That's understandable to a certain degree, it is right after release. However, it makes playing anything aside from the majors kind of a bland experience. Well, even with the major nations, you'll quickly realize that apart from some unique events and advancements, there isn't really a lot that differentiates, let's say, the gameplay of Portugal and Castile. In this game, there are no unique idea sets, no mission trees, which, by the way, seems like a major step back to me. I understand that this was a conscious decision because of concerns for railroading, but for a game that seems to be all about giving the player the freedom of choice with the automation and whatnot, it would have been great to have the option of getting mission trees if the player wanted them. And don't even try to sell me those generic garbage non-Iron Man missions. What even was the point of those? EU4 at its release didn't have proper mission trees either. It took 5 years until the system we know now was implemented. So my hope is that somewhere down the line we'll get something akin to that. I understand the railroading argument to a degree, but right now it feels like we have sort of the opposite problem. There's no guidance at all, nothing to strive towards. Essentially, you're left entirely to your own devices, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it makes figuring out what to logically do next difficult at times, especially in the beginning of a new campaign. Yes, I can set my own goals with all the freedom in the world, but you'll quickly find out that 90% of those free thinker goals are things that would have been in a potential mission tree anyway. People give way more credit to their creativity than they actually should. And as I said, for me this would be a matter of choice. Either play with historical mission trees or not, you know? Like, they do give you historical options whenever a historical event pops up, so why stop there? I think the real future of this game lies in multiplayer. There will come a point for me, for you, and even for the single player onlys, where the obvious limitations of the AI will inevitably result in a lack of challenge. This is where some will hop on the multiplayer train, but many others will simply play the game less or stop entirely, which is a shame because I wholeheartedly believe multiplayer is where it's at. I know it's fool's wisdom to say this, but there's just something about real people, man. The clanker decision making doesn't even begin to compare. The plotting, the wars, the schizo roleplay. Yes, there is and will always be a lot of sweaty tryhards in those as well, but if you're part of a lobby where the playing field is somewhat equal, it's such an upgrade to the game experience. Unfortunately, Paradox will most likely not see it that way. It's no secret that the multiplayer aspects of the game have never been much of a priority to the devs, and it's a shame really. I just hope that we'll at least get a somewhat consistent stability for games throughout the many DLCs in the future. I don't think that's too much to ask for. I'm not even going to go into the DLCs for this video. You know my opinions on that shit. They'll never change. They'll never change! Lastly, here are some honorable mentions for complaints that I'd like to go over. Personal unions. It feels like it's way too easy to get a claim for own CB in this game. Just marry some random fuckwit member of your family to another nation and boom! A generation later you have the CB. You don't know why, you don't know through who, but what does it matter since for some reason it will be you personally sitting on the throne after the war despite your cousin 3rd grade being the one married off? Like, what? Why the fuck am I... Why did I form a union with a conquistador? The arbitrary prices you sometimes have to pay in events. A Grand Palace is like $200, but you'll get a dime a dozen randomly generated mid-artist bum who'll cost 5,000 gold to employ. Where is the sense in that? Research. Well, I like the addition of a tech tree rather than just linear button-click technology. Right now, it's just so convoluted, so bloated wide, it's confusing to look for anything. Yes, there's a search function, but that's just a solution to a problem that shouldn't even exist in the first place. Also, you can't add tech to the front of your queue, which, yeah, it wouldn't have been rocket science to include that feature. Sieges don't feel great. Neither do the forts, to be honest. Both of these feel less important than they should. Assaulting forts is too easy, while at the same time sieges feel even more boring than in EU4, which, congratulations on that. Rebellions and civil wars. They just suck. I like the estates mechanics in this game a lot. The fact that they're autonomous, can build on their own, have their own little eco going on. States feel important, as they should, but then why is it that when a rebellion or a civil war does actually happen, it feels like such a nothing burger? The civil war begins, there's not even an event that pops, no explanation, just we mad. Sometimes the rebellion has like 2 guys fighting in it, and then when you do curb it, it goes away the same way it started, without a single fuck given. No event telling you that the leaders were hanged or what happened to the rebellious people or estates after, nothing. Life just goes on. Graphic settings revert every time you restart the game. I'm setting this shit to low for a reason, mate. What the fuck are you doing? The alerts, you can't disable them. They come back on a monthly basis or whenever you load your save. Why? Predictability. Usually, you'll always see the same couple things happen in every game. France and Bohemia go absolutely bonkers and out of control. Portugal gets murdered by Castile. England gets fucked over beyond repair following the 100 Years' War. And for some reason, the Ottomans will always turn Greek Orthodox. I'm just not even going to delve deeper into that. I think that's about all I have to say for now. I'm sure there's plenty of things I forgot to mention or things I did mention but have been fixed in the meantime. Honestly, I had to change the script like a dozen times because of all the changes to the game that happened in the last 2 weeks. I know I've said it already, but I just cannot stress this enough. If you were going to release a hotfix every 2 days and rebalance everything, why the hell did you not let the game cook for like a bit longer? Anyway, even if I have gone over mostly the negatives for this video, I think the game overall is a net positive, believe it or not. Yes, EU5 has only been released recently, and I'm sure EU4 was an absolute shit show when it came out first as well, but why? Why does that have to be the standard? I really understand the people who want to wait for a couple of months before they buy the game, but honestly, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. You'll always find something that could be improved upon, and that's okay. I wholeheartedly believe that we should be the harshest critics for the things we love the most. After all, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference.
I've been watching you play this now for a bit, Dragoon.
What's up?
You don't seem to be having fun at all.
What? Why?
It feels completely... It doesn't feel... I might just be my observing eyes, but it looks like it's literally just uneventful.
I mean, it is pretty uneventful.